James "Big Shag" Wilson stood tall at 6 feet 7 inches. His hands were big, and his smile was even bigger. Everyone in his small English town knew him as the basketball boy who made it big. From the age of 10, James loved basketball more than anything. He practiced every day after school at the old court behind the library. Rain or shine, James was there, bouncing his ball, making shots, dreaming big dreams. By the time he was 18, scouts from big teams were coming to watch him play. They called him Big Shag because he moved like a dancing giant on the court. No one could stop him when he wanted to score. Soon, James was playing for the best team in Britain. His face was on posters. Children asked for his name on their shirts. Life was good for James, but success wasn't sweet without someone to share it with. For James, that person was Emma Taylor. They met in school when they were both 12. Emma didn't care about basketball at first, but she cared about James. She sat through all his games, even the cold ones where the rain came in through the gym roof. She kept a notebook of all his best moves and points. When he felt down, Emma would say, "You're going to be the best one day, James Wilson, I just know it." When James got his first big job with the London team, Emma was there. She held his hand as he signed the papers. That night they walked by the river and talked about the future. "I'll always be in the front row," she promised, "no matter how famous you get." For 3 wonderful years, James lived his dream. His team won 2 cups. He was the top scorer in the league. Emma was there for all of it, cheering louder than anyone else. Some nights after big wins, they would get fish and chips and sit on a bench by the Thames. James would tell her, "None of this means anything without you seeing it." Then came the game that changed everything. It was the final match of the season. James's team was winning by 2 points. Only 10 seconds left on the clock. James jumped to block a shot, but when he landed, something went terribly wrong. His right knee twisted in a way knees should never twist. The sound was so loud that people in the first rows heard it. James fell to the floor, his face tight with pain. Emma ran down from her seat, pushing past security guards to reach him. She held his hand in the ambulance. She waited through the long hours of tests. And she was there when the doctor said the words that broke James's world. "The damage is very bad. Most players don't come back from this kind of injury." The months after were dark for James. He had 3 operations. Each one was supposed to fix him, but none did completely. He spent hours in therapy, trying to bend his knee, trying to walk, without pain. The team was kind at first. They sent flowers. The coach called. But as time passed, their calls became less frequent. Basketball moved on, without James Wilson. The hardest part was watching Emma try to be strong for him. She came to every therapy session. She cooked healthy meals. She tried to make him laugh. But James couldn't laugh anymore. He pushed her away, not with words, but with silence, with dark moods, with bottles of beer that helped him forget his pain for a few hours. One evening, after James had been particularly cold, Emma sat on the edge of their bed. "My dad is sick," she said quietly. "He needs someone to take care of him. He lives in Manchester now." James just nodded. He didn't ask her to stay. He didn't tell her how much he needed her. His pride was too big, his pain too deep. A week later, Emma was gone. She left a note that said, "Call me when you're ready to be you again." But James never called. 2 years passed slowly. James moved back to his hometown. He got a small job, coaching children at the local gym. His knee still hurt on rainy days, but he could walk now. Sometimes he even shot a few hoops when no one was watching. But he never played a real game again. Every night, James would open his drawer and look at old photos. Emma smiling at the beach, Emma wearing his team scarf, Emma holding a sign that said "Big Shag" with a big heart drawn around it. He wondered where she was now, if she was happy, if she ever thought of him. Life moved on around James, but he stayed stuck in that moment of falling. In his dreams, he was still that boy who could fly through the air and make the crowd roar. But morning always came, and with it, the quiet life he never wanted. What James didn't know was that life wasn't finished with him yet. What he couldn't see was that sometimes second chances come when we least expect them. Sometimes the seed of comeback is just waiting for the right moment to grow. Life can take away our dreams in a single moment, but the human spirit always holds the seed of comeback. The morning sun peeked through James's bedroom curtains. It was 6 o'clock. Most people were still sleeping, but not James. For the past 18 months, this had been his time, his private time to heal. James put on his old training clothes and looked at himself in the mirror. He was thinner now, not as strong as before. The spark in his eyes had dimmed, but something else was there instead, something harder, deeper. He grabbed his gym bag and limped to his car. The streets were empty as he drove to the old community center. The caretaker, Mr. Thompson, always let him in early. "Morning, Big Shag," Mr. Thompson said with a sleepy smile. "Another day, another battle, eh?" James nodded. Mr. Thompson was one of the few people who still called him by his old name. Most had forgotten. Basketball stars shined bright, but faded fast when they couldn't play anymore. The gym was cold and quiet. James started with simple stretches, moving his knee carefully. The doctors had used words like career-ending and permanent damage. His fancy London team had been kind but clear. "We'll pay for your treatment, James, but we've signed someone else for your position." At first, James had given up. He stayed in bed for weeks. He watched old games on TV and cried when no one could see him. But then his mum came to visit. Mary Wilson was a small woman with big hands from years of hard work. She had raised James alone after his dad left. She cleaned houses to pay for his first basketball shoes. She never missed a game when he was growing up. "James Wilson," she had said, sitting on the edge of his bed. "I didn't raise you to quit." "Mum, you don't understand," James had answered. "My knee is broken. My life is over." Mary's eyes had gotten hard then. "Your life? Over? Because you can't put a ball in a hoop anymore? What about all the other bits of life? What about teaching? What about love? What about just being a good man who tries his best?" That night, James had a dream about Emma. In the dream, she was sitting in an empty gym, waiting for him to play. When he woke up, something had changed inside him. The next day, he started his journey back. Small steps at first. Walking around the block, then gentle exercises. Then more. Some days were good, many were bad. His knee would swell up and hurt so much he couldn't sleep. But James kept going. After a year, he could run again. Not fast, not smooth, but he could run. After 15 months, he could shoot baskets. Again. And now, after 18 months, he could almost play. That's when Coach Parker from the local team had spotted him practicing alone. "You've still got it, son," the old coach had said. "Not all of it, maybe, but enough." Now on this important morning, James pushed himself through his usual workout. 2 hours of careful movement, shooting, light running. His knee ached, but he knew the difference now between pain that healed and pain that harmed. As he finished, his phone buzzed. It was a text from Coach Parker. "Big game tonight. Nervous?" James typed back, terrified. The coach replied, "Good. Only fools aren't scared of falling when they've been broken before." All day, James could hardly eat. His stomach felt tight. By evening, as he drove to the small sports hall where the Millfield Wolves played, his hands were shaking on the steering wheel. The changing room was nothing like the fancy ones he'd known in London. The paint was peeling. The benches were old wood. The other players were ordinary men who worked regular jobs and played basketball for love, not money. "All right, Big Shag?" asked Tom, the team captain. "Ready to show these young lads how it's done?" James tried to smile but couldn't. As he put on the simple blue uniform of the Wolves, his knee felt stiff. Doubt filled his mind. What was he doing? Here? Who was he fooling? He was a broken man trying to pretend he was whole again. The crowd outside was small, maybe 200 people, nothing like the thousands who used to cheer for him. But to James, it felt like the whole world was waiting to see him fail. 5 minutes, lads," called Coach Parker. James sat on the bench, his head down. His heart was beating too fast. His hands were cold with sweat. He wanted to run away. Then his phone buzzed again. It was his mum. "Remember what I always tell you?" James smiled a little. He knew those words by heart. Mary Wilson had said them to him since he was a small boy, afraid of the bigger kids at school. "You only truly lose when you stop trying." He typed back, "I remember, Mum. As the team lined up to enter the court, Coach Parker put a hand on James's shoulder. "Listen, son, whatever happens out there tonight doesn't define you. The fact that you're even here, that's already a win." James nodded, took a deep breath and stepped forward with his team. The small crowd clapped and cheered. Someone shouted, "Welcome back, Big Shag." His legs felt weak, but they carried him forward. His future was uncertain, but for now just being here was enough. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is try again when the world has already counted us out. The referee blew his whistle and the game began. James jogged onto the court with his new team. His blue Millfield Wolves jersey felt strange after years in the famous red of London. The small sports hall was only half full, but to James it might as well have been the biggest arena in the country. His heart pounded in his chest. "Just take it easy," Coach Parker had told him. "First game back, no pressure." But James felt all the pressure in the world on his shoulders. The ball came to him early. He caught it, turned to shoot, and missed badly. The ball didn't even touch the rim. A few people groaned. James tried to smile it off, but inside he felt sick. Play continued. James tried to move quickly, but his knee felt stiff. Each time he pushed off it to jump, a small pain shot through his leg. Not the bad pain from before, but enough to make him hesitate. "Pass it here," called Tom, the team captain. James threw the ball, but it went over Tom's head and out of bounds. The other team got possession. "Come on, Wilson," someone shouted from the stands. "That's basic stuff." By the end of the first quarter, James had missed 3 shots and made 2 bad passes. The Wolves were down by 12 points. As he sat on the bench, James could feel Coach Parker looking at him. "You all right, son?" the coach asked quietly. "Yes, Coach, just nervous." Coach Parker nodded. "It's like riding a bike, it'll come back to you." But when James returned to the court in the second quarter, things got worse. He fumbled an easy catch, he traveled with the ball. When he finally had a clear shot right under the basket, he missed again. This time, someone in the crowd laughed, out loud. "Looks like Big Shag is more like Small Shag now," a man said, not bothering to keep his voice down. James felt his face burn with shame. This had been a mistake. He wasn't ready. Maybe he would never be ready again. Maybe this was just who he was now, a has-been, a joke. "Time out," called Coach Parker, seeing the look on James's face. The Wolves gathered around their coach. James kept his head down, not wanting to see the disappointment in his teammates' eyes. They had given him a chance, and he was letting them down. "Look," said Coach Parker, "we're only down 15. We can still turn this around. Wilson, you need to relax. You're thinking too much." James nodded, but he wasn't really listening. He felt like running away. Maybe he could just walk out now. Pretend. To be injured again. Anything to avoid going back on that court and failing in front of everyone. Then, for the first time since the game started, James looked up at the crowd. He wanted to see if his mum had come. She had promised to try, but her job often kept her busy on weeknights. As his eyes scanned the rows of seats, he didn't see Mary Wilson, but he saw someone else instead. Sitting in the middle rows, about halfway up the stands, was a woman with long brown hair. She wore a blue sweater and was leaning forward, watching the game intently. James blinked, sure he was seeing things, but when he looked again, she was still there, Emma. Their eyes met across the crowded hall. For a moment, the noise of the game, the crowd, the coach's voice, it all faded away. There was just Emma, looking at him with those same warm eyes he remembered so well. She gave a small smile and raised her hand in a tiny wave. James couldn't believe it. 3 years had passed since she left to care for her father in Manchester. 3 years of silence between them. He had thought about her every day, but pride had kept him from calling, and now here she was, at his comeback game. "Wilson, are you listening?" Coach Parker's voice broke through James's thoughts. "Sorry, Coach, yes, good, because I'm keeping you in, you can do this." The timeout ended. As James walked back onto the court, his mind was racing. Why was Emma here? How did she know about the game? Had she moved back to town? From the corner of his eye, he saw her lean over and speak to the woman next to her, Mrs. Baker, who ran the local newsagent's shop. Of course. The town was small. Word must have spread about his comeback game. But that didn't explain why Emma would come. Not after how things had ended between them. Not after his coldness when she needed to leave. As play resumed, James found himself stealing glances at Emma. Each time she was watching him, not the game. Not with judgment or pity, but with something else. Something that looked almost like pride. During a break in play, when everyone was moving to the other end of the court, James saw Emma open her handbag and take out something small. She held it up for a moment, where only he could see. It was the small wooden basketball he had carved for her years ago when they were still in school. He had spent weeks making it, sanding it smooth, painting the lines carefully. Emma had carried it for luck to every one of his games back then. She still had it. After everything. James felt something shift inside him, like a weight being lifted. She hadn't just forgotten him and moved on. She had been carrying him with her all this time, just as he had carried her. We never know who still carries us in their heart, even when paths divide. The game continued into the third quarter. The Wolves were now 20 points behind. James had scored only 2 points, the easiest free throws that even a beginner could make. His teammates stopped passing him the ball. They had seen enough. During a break in play, Coach Parker called James over to the sideline. His face was kind but serious. "Listen, James," he said quietly. "Maybe tonight isn't your night. Let's get you some rest and try again next week." James knew what this meant. The coach wanted to take him out of the game. Part of him felt relieved. He could sit on the bench, hide from all the eyes watching him fail. But another part, a deeper part, felt a pain worse than any knee injury. The pain of giving up. "Coach, please," James said. "Just a few more minutes." Coach Parker shook his head. "I don't think so, son. You're not ready." James looked down at his shoes. The blue laces of his Wolves' uniform seemed to blur as tears threatened to form in his eyes. "Not here," he thought. "Don't cry here in front of everyone." Just as Coach Parker was about to call for a substitution, there was a small commotion in the stands. James looked up. Emma had stood from her seat. She was looking right at him, her eyes locked on his. Then slowly and clearly, she made a gesture with her hands. First, she touched her heart with both hands, tapping it twice. Then she pointed, straight at James. The memory hit James like a wave. They were 16 years old. It was James's first big school tournament. Teams from all over the county had come to play. James was so nervous he felt sick. Before the game, he and Emma were sitting on a bench outside the gym. "I can't do it," he had told her. "There are scouts here. What if I mess up? What if I let everyone down?" Emma had taken his shaking hands in hers. "James Wilson," she had said, firmly. "Do you know why you're the best player in this whole tournament?" "Because I'm tall?" he had asked with a weak smile. "No, you dumbo," she had laughed. "Because you play with your heart. When you play for joy, when you play because you love this game, no one can stop you. It's when you play from fear that you stumble." Then she had made up a signal, right there, on the spot. 2 touches to the heart, then a point to him. "This means," she explained, "play with your heart, not your fear." Every game after that, before he stepped onto the court, James would look for Emma in the crowd. She would make their signal and he would play his best game. Now 7 years later, in a small sports hall with a team he barely knew, Emma was giving him their signal again. Play with your heart, not your fear. Tears filled James's eyes, but they weren't tears of shame anymore. They were something else. All these years after his injury, after he had pushed her away, after the silence between them, she still believed in him. She still knew who he truly was. Coach Parker saw the tears in James's eyes and misunderstood. "It's all right, son. There's no shame in taking more time to heal." But James shook his head. "No, Coach, I'm good. I'm ready now." Coach Parker looked at him carefully. Something had changed in James's face. The fear was gone. In its place was a quiet determination that the coach recognized from watching old videos of James in his prime. "All right," Coach Parker said slowly. 3 more minutes, show me something." James nodded. He looked back at Emma. She smiled and sat down, but her eyes never left him. As play resumed, James felt different. The pressure was still there, but it no longer crushed him. His knee still ached, but the pain seemed far away now. For the first time since his injury, He wasn't thinking about what he couldn't do. He was just playing the game he loved. When Tom passed him the ball, James didn't hesitate. He drove toward the basket, moved past one defender, then another. His knee held. He jumped, not as high as before, but high enough, and scored. The small crowd cheered. His teammates looked surprised. Coach Parker raised an eyebrow. On the next play, James stole the ball and started a fast break. He passed to Tom, who scored easily. Then James blocked a shot, grabbed the rebound, and found the open man. The Wolves started to close the gap. By the end of the third quarter, James had scored 8 more points. His moves weren't as flashy as they once were, but there was a smoothness to them now, a new kind of grace that came from having been broken and put back together. During the break before the final quarter, Coach Parker pulled James aside. "Where was this player hiding?" he asked with a grin. James glanced up at the stands, at Emma, who was watching him with shining eyes. "I just needed to remember something," he said. "Well, whatever it is, keep remembering," Coach Parker told him. "And James, I don't think we'll be taking you out after all." As James headed back onto the court, he felt a warmth spreading through his chest. It wasn't just about basketball anymore. It was about finding himself again, about remembering who he was before the fall. Sometimes all we need is one person who never forgot who we truly are. The final quarter of the game started with the Wolves still down by 12 points. Not impossible to overcome, but difficult. James took a deep breath as he stepped back onto the court. His knee was sore now, but in a good way. The kind of soreness that came from honest work, not from breaking. The other team, the Red Hill Rockets, were starting to look tired. They had been winning easily and had relaxed too much. Now, with the Wolves suddenly playing better, the Rockets looked worried. In the stands, Emma leaned forward. She hadn't meant to come tonight. When Mrs. Baker told her about James's comeback game, Emma had said no at first. Too much history, too much pain. But then she found herself driving to the sports hall anyway, the small wooden basketball charm in her handbag, just like old times. On the court, James called for the ball. Tom passed it to him. The defender guarding James was tall and fast, but James had something the young man didn't have, years of knowing how to read the game, how to feel its rhythm. James faked left, then moved right. His knee complained a little but held firm. He shot the ball in a smooth arc. It went in cleanly. The crowd cheered. Someone shouted, "Big Shag is back!" James smiled. Not his old smile, not the famous basketball star smile that had been on posters. This was something more real, more earned. Over the next 5 minutes, the game changed. James scored 3 more times. He made perfect passes to his teammates. When he couldn't move fast enough, he used his basketball brain instead, seeing openings before they happened, placing himself where he needed to be. With 2 minutes left, the Wolves were only down by 4 points. The crowd was fully into the game now, cheering for every Wolves move. Coach Parker paced the sideline, calling plays. "Wilson," he shouted, "corner play." James nodded. He knew what to do. As the team moved into position, James caught Emma's eye. Once more. She made their signal again. Heart, heart, point. Play with your heart, not your fear. The ball came to James at the 3-point line. In his prime, this shot had been easy for him. Now it looked very far away. The defender was right on him, hands up, blocking his view. Time seemed to slow down. James could feel his heartbeat. He could hear the crowd holding their breath. He could see Coach Parker watching him, trust in his eyes. And he could feel Emma's belief in him, stronger than any doubt. James jumped, not as high as before, and shot the ball. It flew through the air in a perfect curve and went straight through the hoop. 3 points. The crowd erupted. The Wolves were now only 1 point behind with 90 seconds left. The Rockets tried to slow the game down, to run out the clock, but the Wolves were hungry now. Tom stole the ball and passed to James. James drove toward the basket. 2 defenders moved to stop him. In his old days, James would have tried to jump over them to make a big flashy dunk. But that wasn't who he was now. Instead, he passed the ball to Pete, the youngest player on the team, who was wide open. Pete scored easily. The Wolves were ahead by 1 point. 30 seconds left. The Rockets had one more chance. Their best player took a shot. It bounced off the rim. James jumped for the rebound, feeling his knee protest, but he got the ball and held onto it as the final seconds ticked away. The buzzer sounded. The Wolves had won 78-77. James's teammates surrounded him, patting his back, messing up his hair like he was a young player again. Coach Parker shook his hand with both of his own. "Knew you still had it in you," he said, with a wink. But James wasn't really listening. His eyes were searching the stands for Emma. She wasn't in her seat anymore. Had she left? His heart sank. After the team talk in the changing room, James showered and changed slowly. His knee was properly sore now, but he didn't mind. It was a good kind of pain, an honest one. As he walked out of the sports hall into the cool night air, he saw a figure waiting by the exit. Even in the dim light, he would know her anywhere. Emma stood there, her hands in the pockets of her coat, her breath making small clouds in the cold. For a moment, neither of them moved. 3 years of silence lay between them. 3 years of hurt and missed calls and pride getting in the way. Then, James limped forward, and Emma walked to meet him. When they were face to face, words seemed too small for what needed to be said. Emma moved first, wrapping her arms around him in a hug that felt like coming home. James held her tight, surprised to find tears on his face again. "I saw you play," Emma said softly. "You're still amazing." James shook his head. "I'm not the same. I'm slower. My knee—" "I didn't say you were the same," Emma interrupted. "I said you're still amazing." They pulled apart slightly, looking at each other. Emma's eyes were the same warm brown he remembered, but there were small lines around them now that hadn't been there before. "Why did you come tonight?" James asked. "After everything. After how I pushed you away." Emma smiled. "I never gave up on you," she whispered. "Some people are worth waiting for." Something broke open in James's chest then, the last hard piece of pride and hurt that he had been carrying. As they walked to the car park together, he realized that winning tonight's game wasn't the victory that mattered. The real win was finding his way back, to basketball, to Emma, to himself. "Your dad," James said suddenly. "Is he better?" Emma nodded. "He's living with my aunt now. I moved back here last month." "So you're staying?" Emma looked at him. "That depends," she said quietly. "Is there a reason for me to stay?" James took her hand, his heart full. "I think there might be." As they reached Emma's car, James felt lighter than he had in years. Not because his team had won a small local basketball game, not because he had played well, but because he had found something he thought was lost forever: hope. The greatest victory isn't winning against others, but reclaiming the hope we thought was lost.